The movie opens to a young woman named Elise stopping at the gate of her house after a late-night jog. She makes her way in and goes into the kitchen looking at her phone and putting the keys on the counter. There's a thud from upstairs. Her roommate Maddie has collapsed in the shower with blood running down her, but Elise doesn't hear anything as she has her earphones in. She casually makes her way upstairs into the bedroom and calls for Maddie multiple times, but doesn't get a response. As she takes a look in the bathroom, she's shocked to see a masked man called Loverboy who looks like an extra from the rock band Kiss. He walks closer to her when she notices her lifeless friend in the shower cubicle covered in blood. She starts whimpering as she gets stabbed with blood gushing out. He pushes her into the room when she starts to scream as he holds up the knife and finishes her off. The next scene, a group of students, Phoebe, Christine and Mike, are in the library studying for a final college exam. Phoebe struggles to concentrate after working 3 jobs, and now she has taken a babysitting job the night before the exams as she needs the extra cash. Christine suggests Phoebe's pro wrestler boyfriend Tom could cover for her for one night so she can concentrate on studying, but she doesn't seem too sure of the idea of him looking after a living breathing child. Next we see Tom in the ring wrestling with his opponent Tyson and giving the crowd a good show. They thump each other multiple times before Tom gets Tyson in his own suplex move, holding him in the air for several seconds, then dropping him with the back-breaking maneuver, all the while the crowd are chanting Tom's name. After the match is over, a guy called Dusty pays Tom his cut, a huge $20, which Tom is not at all happy about as it was a sold-out crowd and thinks he should get paid more for getting his ass kicked. Dusty tells him if he doesn't like it, he can do one. Tom eventually accepts the money and tells Dusty he will be back the following month. We are now at Tom and Phoebe's place. She is studying when he walks through the door. He grabs a can of beer from the kitchen and places some mail on the table, including a poster of a missing girl. Phoebe picks up the poster and is shocked as she immediately recognizes it's Elise from the photo and wonders what happened to her. As he sits down to relax, she breaks it to him that she needs him to babysit a young girl named Grace for a couple of hours so she can study. He doesn't seem very keen to do it and thinks it will make him look less macho, but then gives in and tells her he will babysit for her. We next see a guy watching a Jurassic movie when he gets a phone call. The caller tells him he needs him for a job and to bring his tools. After hanging up, he opens the cupboard door and inside is the white mask with posters of missing girls pasted all over. He reaches for a knife and closes the door. It's now a new morning. Tom is just getting up when Phoebe comes in brushing her teeth and reminds him of his new babysitting job that night. She informs him that she has already spoken to the Fosters, who are Grace's parents, and told them about her new replacement. She reassures Tom that Grace is a good kid and he has nothing to worry about. Tom heads over to the Fosters' house. He knocks on the door. Grace's stepdad Gil answers and is surprised to see a big guy standing there. Then it hits him Tom is there for the babysitting job but is a little thrown back as he tells him you don't often see men babysitters, especially his size, and hopes he's not a weirdo. They go into the kitchen and he introduces Tom to his wife Barb and reassures her he's not a weirdo. She has been baking cookies while sipping on wine. Barb still has her hand glued to the wine glass as they make their way upstairs to introduce Tom to Grace, who is in her room playing a video game. Barb opens the bedroom door and tells Grace her babysitter is here and that she is to be in bed by 8:30 and only allowed one cookie. She then turns to Tom and notifies him that she also likes a cup of tea before bed as it helps her relax, then head back downstairs. They exit the house. Barb makes sure with Tom if Phoebe is still coming round later in the evening, to which he confirms she is and thanks her for the job. Gil hands over some money to Tom before making his way to the car and drive off. Tom goes back in and locks the door. It looks like someone has been spying on them. Tom goes into Grace's room and makes small talk to get to know her a bit, but she's more interested in the game. He tells her he'll be downstairs if she needs anything. He turns on the TV, then hears a mysterious thumping sound coming from upstairs. He goes back up and asks Grace if everything is okay as he heard a noise and thinks she may have had a fall or something. She tells him she is fine and didn't hear anything. He closes her bedroom door and as he is about to make his way down again, he hears creaking sound. He thinks the noise came from the attic and slowly walks towards the door. He's about to open it when Grace comes out of her room startling him and tells him she's hungry and wants pizza with double cheese. It's now dark outside and the pizza boy has arrived. As Tom pays him, he recognizes Tom from wrestling and tells him he's a big fan and has seen him wrestle many times. He tries to impress Tom by flexing his bicep, then asks if it's okay to get a photo with him. Tom agrees and makes his day. Pizza boy gets back into his car and pumps up the volume. He takes a pull on his vaping device, then starts coughing his lungs up as he sees a figure walking towards the shed. He gets out of his car and confidently walks towards the shed. He stops as he hears a noise, then slowly continues forward, informing the person that he's been practicing his wrestling moves and isn't afraid to use them on him. He takes a look inside the shed. As he turns around, he gets his throat slashed by Loverboy, then grabs his head and pulls it back, making him choke and the blood gush out faster. Meanwhile, back in the house, Tom and Grace are in her room. She continues playing her game and asks him a weird question about death. She saw her dad die in hospital when he got sick. Then her mom married Gil, but Grace thinks he's a jerk. Tom is now in the kitchen making tea for Grace when he gets a message from Phoebe. Someone slowly lowers the attic ladder and two guys make their way down. One of them whips out a knife. Grace is oblivious to the sound as she has her headphones on. As Tom puts dishes away in the cupboard, he sees a reflection of a masked man with a knife and turns around. The guy's name is Bernie. Grace now takes off her headphones, and as she slowly looks up, she sees another masked man called Spinhead staring back at her, making her scream. Tom gets ordered to lie down on the floor as he hears Grace scream but declines, making Bernie attack him. Tom quickly picks up the kettle and splashes the boiling water straight into Bernie's face, making him scream in pain. Now he's really mad and goes for round 2, waving his knife about. It's not much of a fight though, as this time Tom thumps Bernie's head onto the hot stove, holding him there, making his skin sizzle and leaving an imprint on his face. He gets up and drops straight to the floor. He then rushes upstairs as Grace continues screaming to find Spinhead wearing his mask upside down with a knife and grabs hold of her. Tom orders him to let the girl go and offers him money and himself, but the masked guys are there only for the girl. Grace finally escapes as Spinhead loses his step and another fight breaks out. Tom gets stabbed in the foot and starts grunting as he pulls the knife out, spewing blood. Spinhead goes downstairs huffing as he searches for Grace. He goes into the bedroom and looks around when he hears a sound from under the bed. He slowly walks towards the bed, climbing on top, then slowly lowers his face, making Grace scream again. Tom grabs him and throws him to the floor before knocking him out with one punch to the face. She comes out from under the bed, noticing Tom's bloodied foot, and wonders if Spinhead is dead. Tom gives him a big kick to see he's still alive, and unfortunately, so is Bernie as he pulls himself up. Tom ties Spinhead up and wants to call the police but left his phone in the kitchen. A message comes through from Phoebe. Bernie sees it and messages her to come now. Tom goes back into the kitchen to find Bernie gone along with his phone. He grabs a kitchen knife and he and Grace go out to the front of the house, noticing his tires slashed. Grace hears a noise and they quickly go back in. Tom wonders how the intruders managed to get in the house in the first place. They go up and look at the attic. Tom takes a look inside to find unpleasant things up there. He tells Grace to go and lock herself in the bathroom while he goes to interrogate Spinhead. Spinhead tries to break free, then plays dead as Tom enters but doesn't fool Tom. He wants to know who they are and what they want. Spinhead tells him again they only want the child, and now the girl too, referring to Phoebe. Tom gives him a slap in the face for that comment before leaving. Phoebe and her college friends have now arrived. They go up to the house and she texts Tom to let him know she's outside. Meanwhile, Loverboy sneaks into the car. Phoebe receives a weird text back reading "boo" as Bernie has crept up behind her. It's mind-boggling how Mike and Christine did not see a grown man standing there as Bernie grabs Phoebe, making them all scream. Mike runs to the car. Phoebe elbows Bernie in the face, then squirts something, making him fall to the floor. It looks like he's not having much luck. The girls are yelling, banging on the door as Mike honks the horn for them to get back in the car so they can escape. As Tom comes out, they all notice intruder Loverboy in the car with a knife and yell at Mike to get out. He slowly turns around in fear and gets his throat slit. He tries to escape but has lost too much blood. A sobbing Christine wants to help as he's not dead yet, but Loverboy grabs his head and stabs him multiple times in the back. He's definitely dead now. Tom and the girls rush back in the house. Christine is having a panic attack after what she just witnessed. He asked for their phone so he can call the police, but Bernie took Phoebe's phone and Christine left hers in Mike's car, then yells at Tom to know what the F is going on. Tom tells them he thinks they are under attack by a gang of sex perverts. Bernie is still wailing in pain as he runs towards the shed. He stumbles in with limited vision where the other intruders are waiting. The leader of the group, called Jackal, is also there and wants to know what's taking so long to get the girl. The three are in the kitchen when a calm Tom grabs a beer and confesses he heroically fought off 2 intruders earlier on, and tells Phoebe that Grace is safely locked in the bathroom with her toys to keep her occupied. Phoebe's not happy about that and goes to get her. They are all upstairs when Phoebe tells a scared Grace it's safe to come out. She comes out and gives Phoebe a big embrace and asks what's going on. Tom tells her bluntly there's a gang of mask-wearing perverts after her. Obviously, due to her age, she doesn't know what a pervert is. Phoebe explains it's a bad person. Meanwhile, in the shed, the leader orders Slackjaw to handle the situation, making him giggle with excitement, and takes Bernie with him. As Christine cleans Tom's bleeding foot and wraps bandage around it, they have no way of contacting anyone and wonder if they will make it out alive. There's a crashing sound in the distance. Tom picks up the knife and goes to see what it is, telling the girls to stay put. but Phoebe defies the order and follows him. Tom heads towards the kitchen and sees Slackjaw trying to break in through the door. He stabs him in the arm, making him yell in pain. He next picks up a frying pan and is about to bash him in the head when Phoebe comes in and tells him not to do it, as he might accidentally kill him, which Tom wouldn't feel so bad about if he did. Phoebe then has a change of heart when Slackjaw calls her a whore and tells Tom to go ahead and bash him. Bernie runs back to the shed as they have failed once again. The babysitter is really hissing the jackal off and tells Bernie it's time to unleash their true power. He places both hands on a mysterious door, voices start whispering and lightning start pounding. This power starts to have an effect on Spinhead as it makes him possessed and starts punching the floor. Back in the bedroom, they all hear the punching sounds. Tom remembers that he tied one of the intruders up in one of the other bedrooms. Phoebe's not happy about what she's hearing, as any one of them could have got to Grace and killed her. He reassures her that's not going to happen. He hands over a meat cleaver to Phoebe for protection as he goes to see what's going on. Tom knocks on the bedroom door, still holding his can of beer, and informs Spinhead to stay put and don't even think about coming out. He slowly opens the door to see Spinhead standing in front of him with his head down, then rapidly looks up at Tom with his eyes lit bright orange. I think that look made Tom soil his pants. He grabs Tom by the neck, bashing him into the wall, then lifting him off the floor, choking him, making him drop his can of beer, and throws him to the floor. Tom gets up and fist punches Spinhead straight in the face but doesn't go down, and thinks he's Neo from the Matrix. Now it's Spinhead's turn. He throws powerful punches at Tom. Tom goes down in pain but doesn't give up. He gets up again only to be kicked in the leg and thrown across the room. Spinhead proves to be too powerful for Tom and he runs into the kitchen picking up his weapon, the frying pan. Spinhead slowly peels off his mask, revealing glowing eyes but terrible makeup. His cannibalism behavior shines through as he threatens to crack Tom's bones and suck out the marrow for starters. For the main course, he's going to bite his eyes out of his skull and chew out his tongue. And for dessert, he's going to snap his vertebrae one by one and drink his spinal fluid. For all his talking doesn't scare Tom, as Phoebe has snuck up behind Spinhead and chops into his neck with the meat cleaver holding it there. But this doesn't have any kind of effect on him as he slowly turns around and grabs her by the neck. He throws her to the floor with the meat cleaver still in his neck. Tom strikes him with the frying pan, blood dripping and splattering all over the place. Tom strikes him one more time, decapitating his head and blood gushing everywhere. Phoebe yells as she gets soaked in his blood. It goes silent, then all of a sudden Spinhead's body comes back to life and backs Tom towards the door. Slackjaw grabs his arm so he can't move. Phoebe picks up the meat cleaver again and continuously chops into Slackjaw's head. Tom comes to the conclusion these intruders might not be perverts after all and definitely not human. Tom comes out of the house holding Spinhead's severed head whilst Loverboy is resting on the car. He raises the head up and asks what was this thing. Loverboy gets off the car in shock but doesn't say anything. Tom throws the head to the floor and goes back in. The four are back in the room discussing what these things might be. Tom still got his beer and doesn't think the intruders are demons or vampires or zombies or even human, but they could be dealing with something supernatural. For their own protection he tells them to grab a knife each, including Grace. Meanwhile, Loverboy joins the others in the shed, throwing Spinhead's head on the floor. He informs the jackal the others have failed and they're running out of time. The jackal yells he's never had a ritual fall apart like this before, pointing to Bernie's face. The mysterious door starts thumping like a beating heart. Mike comes back to life possessed. He gets up and slowly walks towards the house. He tries to get in but the door is locked and whispers to Christine to let him in. She is surprised he's still alive. She rushes to the door and is happy to see him. As she unlocks the door, Phoebe gets there in time to lock it up again, telling her it's not Mike as he is dead. Christine thinks Mike is still alive and pleads for Phoebe to move out of the way, pointing the knife at her. She reluctantly moves aside and Christine finally opens the door. Mike walks slowly towards her. She doesn't seem fazed by his cloudy eyes and hugs him with a sigh of relief and immediately senses something doesn't feel right as she looks at her hands covered in his blood. He's turned in a zombie and bites into her neck, ripping off a piece of her flesh and chews on it before spitting it out. Phoebe angrily charges at him but he's too strong for her and gets her in a headlock. Tom rushes down to all the screaming and is shocked to see Mike. He runs up to Mike and stabs him, then punches him in the face, cracking his glasses, but he doesn't go down. Zombie Mike retaliates and Tom goes crashing down. Phoebe slowly grabs a knife, swiping it into Mike's leg, making him drop. Tom gets up and body slams into Mike's face several times, splitting his head apart, making a bloody mess on the floor. A sobbing Phoebe tends to Christine, who is choking on her own blood, but it's too late. Meanwhile, Gil and Barb have returned back home to find several cars in the drive. Tom is still body slamming a dead corpse. As Gil and Barb enter into their home, they are horrified to find two dead bodies and ask what the hell happened when Tom tells them they were attacked by masked men. Tom and Phoebe want to leave. Gil tells them to stay put and is going to call the police before punching him in the chest, almost breaking his wrist. Barb worryingly asks about Grace, who is safely locked in the bathroom. Gil tells her to get their daughter so they can leave. Tom stops them and tells him there's a head in the attic and needs to show them. Upstairs, Barb shouts for Grace to open the door and is shocked when she comes out holding a knife. She throws it to the floor and tightly hugs her daughter as Tom pulls down the attic ladder. Tom and Gil are in the attic and is horrified to what he's seeing. Tom comes to the conclusion that the attack was all planned. As he turns around, Gil stabs him. Phoebe screams as she turns around and sees Loverboy casually standing there, but Barb didn't really look shocked and seems to know the masked man. Tom was right, it was all planned, by none other than Barb and Gil, which went pear-shaped. Barb tells a scared Grace the man is her friend and orders her to come to her. Phoebe feels something's not right and holds her back, but Grace obeys her mother and runs to her. Gil comes back down feeling proud of himself as it's the first time he's ever stabbed anyone. None of this strange behavior is making sense to Phoebe, so the parents try to explain that Tom and Grace were supposed to eat the drugged cookies she made so they pass out. Their plan was to ascend, to die together as a family, including Phoebe, in honor of the Eternal Ones, so when they walk into the void they can live forever in paradise. But Tom fudged things up. They go on to explain none of this would be possible without her and that she's the gift to the Eternal Ones since she's a pretty young college girl, which they like and is a key part of the ritual. She thinks they're delusional and wants nothing to do with this, but is told she has no choice. She starts screaming and yelling for Tom as Gil drags her downstairs. Loverboy comes face to face with Tom. Tom asks how he wants to end this, by using their fist like a man or by using the knife like a coward. The intruder gets up laughing that he doesn't need the knife to kill him as he's a dead man walking from all the bleeding. He plays some heavy metal music and tells Tom instead he's going to feed him to the head, explaining that the head was one of the first who brought the power of the Eternal Ones to their dimension and they blessed him with immortality. He smacks the head, bringing him to life, and starts yelling to feed him. The family make their way to the barn, dragging Phoebe with them. Grace is desperate to go for a pee. Barb doesn't understand why she didn't go when she was locked in the bathroom all night. Gil shouts she should go now as they don't want her wetting herself at the ritual. Tom gets up and takes a swing at Loverboy but gets punched in the abs for his effort. The head opens his mouth wide in excitement as Loverboy grabs Tom by the hair and drags him towards the head. Meanwhile, Gil rushes up with Grace to the bathroom, telling her to be quick. She spots the knife on the floor. As she comes out, she stabs Gil in the leg. He stumbles down shouting for Barb. A courageous Grace now rushes up to the attic after hearing noises and stabs Loverboy in the back as he's trying to feed Tom to the head. Loverboy turns around, pulling the knife out, and threatens Grace, but Tom grabs him and throws him to the head instead. He starts wailing as the head munches away on his brain, blood splattering all down his face. He gets up shrieking in pain with his brain exposed, then Tom strikes him in his face, making him fall out of the attic. Tom and Grace are back in the kitchen with their new friend the head. He heats up a knife as he needs to cauterize the wound to stop the bleeding. It's going to be painful and asks Grace to get a beer out from the fridge. With the knife now glowing red hot, he presses it against the wound, making him yell in pain. In the barn, Phoebe has been tied up and it looks like the leader is preparing Barb for the ritual when Gil walks in, interrupting them, and moans about Grace stabbing him. She snaps at him that they need her and go to get her. The displeased leader starts cursing and yells at Bernie to go search the property for Grace, as none of this will work without her. Barb and Gil start arguing and blame each other for the situation as they go to get Grace, and she reminds him that she killed her husband for him because he promised her eternal life. Now they are hissed off as nothing is going to plan and everyone is gone, including the head. Tom and Grace enter the shed to find the corpse of Pizza Boy. He's gutted the boy is dead as he was a fan of Tom's. He takes out a key from his pocket as Grace asks if her mom is a bad person. Tom's not sure and tells her to just blame Gil for everything. There's a creaking sound from the house. Grace hides behind the shed door as intruder Bernie marches towards them. Tom goes through some garden tools to see which can do the most damage and settles for the axe. As Bernie approaches, he's startled to see Tom standing there with an axe. He looks around and the knife catches his eye. As he goes to grab it, the axe comes crashing down onto his hands, cutting off his fingers and the head laughing his head off. He starts wailing from the torture, seeing his blood squirt everywhere, and runs off crying. I guess this is not what he signed up for. Grace comes back in. The head is pining for food, so she feeds him a finger to satisfy his craving. Gil starts to stress eat and Barb is disappointed in Grace for running off and just hopes that Grace understands what her mother is doing and why. Bernie comes crashing into the kitchen, dripping blood everywhere. He turns on one of the burners and is hesitant, but then bravely slams what's left of his fingers onto the red-hot rings, cauterizing them. Barb and Gil rush out of the house to be greeted by Tom and Grace and of course the head. A nervous Gil apologizes for stabbing him and doesn't want any more violence, but Tom has other ideas and gives him an ultimatum, which is to get Phoebe so they can leave or he'll destroy the head. Gil tells Tom to speak to the jackal and maybe they can come up with a deal. The leader shows up with his sidekick known as Meat and asks Tom what he wants. Tom tells him if he wants head, then he must release Phoebe. The jackal tells him as much as he wants head, he can't do that as he needs her and Grace more, as he explains the Eternal Ones grant unlimited powers and everlasting paradise when they ascend. In exchange, they sacrifice copious amounts of beautiful young women. If the sacrifice doesn't go ahead, there will be death on an unimaginable scale. He gives Tom two choices: give him head and he will let him live, or kill the head, in which case the sidekick will kill him. Tom doesn't give a shite and splits the head in half. Meat gets ready for action and the two go to battle. Tom swings the axe but Meat grabs it from him and throws it to the floor. Grace starts cheering as Tom gets a few punches in. Meat comes back stronger, growling and grunting. He starts choking Tom while lifting him off the ground and throws him. He gets back up and punches Meat right in the crown jewels. They exchange more blows when Tom tells Grace to feed the hungry head. The head starts feasting on Meat's neck, satisfying his craving. With another intruder down, Tom's next mission is to save Phoebe. He asks Grace a dumb question: if she can drive. She said her father used to sometimes let her steer the wheel when he'd drive. That's good enough for Tom and tells her to start up Pizza Boy's car and find the police if him and Phoebe aren't out in 10 minutes or so. She tells him to save her mom too, but can do whatever he wants with Gil. Phoebe is relieved when Tom shows up at the barn, but not so much the others. They are displeased as their plan is sabotaged. A red light appears behind the doors. The Eternal Ones are trying to get through. The jackal tells Tom Phoebe needs to sacrifice herself or they will come through and destroy everyone. With the doors fully open, he pushes the jackal through it, instead putting an end to the ritual, or so they thought. The doors start clanking again, then burst open looking like a hot furnace with thunder and voices yelling. They don't know what to do in this situation. The only person who does was thrown in. Tom decides to go in and fight whatever's on the other side of the door, but not before declaring his love for Phoebe and start making out. As he's about to enter, he gets punched in the face. The jackal has come back more powerful as an Eternal One. Gil runs to him asking for forgiveness, then gets thrown in. The jackal tells them he will sow pain and misery and will harvest flesh and blood and cause total destruction as the sacred contract was broken, and will now take them all as slaves for all eternity. The speech doesn't last long as a car comes crashing into the jackal, with the impact pushing him into the other dimension and getting destroyed. It was young Grace who was driving and saves the day. Phoebe and Barb run to her to check if she is okay. Phoebe tells Barb to F off when she wants a group hug. As they're about to leave, Meat makes a surprising appearance, knocking Tom over and pressing down on his chest with his foot. Phoebe notices a metal hook and drags it straight into Meat's neck, pulling down hard on the chain. Grace and Tom lend a hand. The force is too much and completely rips his head off. Phoebe has had enough of Barb and punches her in the face and quits. The four make their way to the car and drive off. The movie ends with footsteps thudding. And would you believe it, Bernie is still alive, and so is the head. Thanks for watching.